going to show you a few extra things that you might need for the homework. So these are things like containing a layer into another layer, distorting a layer, and editing from a photo. So let's start by making this M a lot bigger. So since it's a letter, so I'm command clicking on it. Since it's a letter, I could just double click and then make the point size larger. So I could just go in and type 300. So make it larger. I can also just hit, so if I hit Command T, which I assume is Control T in PC, it kind of pops up this square around, and then I can move it up and down in size. So, and you see here the proportions are contained, so there it will increase it proportionally, which is useful. So okay, now I hit enter, I have my really large M letter. So now let's say I would want to show the S coming out of this M letter, right? So what I'd like to do is let's take this S and make it red for now, just because that's just easier for us. So I can go here in T. So I'm going into the layers panel, selecting the S, and then if I go back into the type tool, the little color shows up here, and let's just change it to a red for now. So yeah, that'll be easier for now. So now I have this S, and I'm, again, you can command or control click to select it. And let's say I want to make it a little bigger. Okay, command T, and I'm dragging, and I'm making it larger. Okay, so now we've just been looking at the artboard, but let's look at the layers. So the S is actually right above the M in my layers, but it could be that it's right here, in which case I want to take this S, and just by kind of holding and dragging, I can drag it down right above the M. So moving it about, I'm just clicking, kind of click holding. So now that one is above the other, I can tell this layer here to go onto this layer. So in Mac, what you're going to do is hold Option, and in PC, I believe that's Control. So you see there's a little tiny line that's connected right above each layer. It's like this is this layer's world, and this is this layer's world. If I hit Option right at this line, this little white square pops up. So Control, and so try and get that. So if you're at the wrong location, it won't show up, but if you hold Option and kind of move your mouse above, you'll see it show up. So now I'm clicking. If I click it, the S is now contained inside the M. So if we went back to the type tool here, and I'm making it white, because we're only doing black and white for now, it becomes like removed from this M. So, and then you could, you can move it around within, as long as it's the right thing you're clicking, you can move it around. It's still contained inside this S. And if you want to undo that, it's the same process reverse. I'm just holding Option or Control, and as you can see, it pops up with a broken arrow. I click that, and now they're disconnected. I can move it around. Let's make it black again, so I can move it around. It's separate. Okay, so that's how to contain a layer into another layer. You can contain multiple layers, so I could do, I'm just doing shortcuts. If you do Command and Delete, it'll change to the second color. Anyway, you don't need to know that. So if I'm doing S is contained within the M, I can also Command click A, bring it up above, and then Option click or Control click, and here you go. They're all contained within this letter M. So you might want to know how to do this, but you don't necessarily need to. It's just so you know. All right, undo this. Now I'm going to show you, I'm making these black again. Okay, so now I'm going to show you if you wanted to distort the direction of it. Normally we don't really do this in type, but it's okay. I'm gonna let you guys do it. So I'm doing Command T, which is basically saying command this type tool. I think that would be Control T in PC. And so you see how right now I could move I can make it bigger or smaller. But if I hit Command or Control at the top where these little squares are, it changes the color of the arrow from black to white. So that just that tells it that I want to control it, like override the way it's normally controlled. So if I do that, I can drag, and I'm holding Command the entire time as I'm doing this, but I can drag different corners, and it will distort. Basically, it's like just changing what it's sitting on. Let's say it's sitting on a piece of wood and we're moving it around. So it's not destroying the letter really, but it's just distorting it. So in case, you're inspired by something we looked at in person, you can be doing that. Another way is also if your letter, you could rasterize your letter again. Control click on Mac or right click, I believe, and then you will rasterize it. And then if you hit just Command T again, I think. So hold on. Yeah, it's free transform. So whatever that is, if you go and edit in Photoshop and it'll show up free transform, whatever that says here, I hope it's Control T in PC, you hold that. And then again, I can distort, and this one's slightly different. As you can see, it's kind of destroying the letter because it doesn't see it as a letter anymore. It doesn't really care. Whereas the other option, when it's not rasterized, it's trying to maintain the integrity of the letter, which is better for typography. This is like insanity. But this is acceptable. Okay, so now I was going to show you, I brought in some images from the day yesterday that you guys took. So really briefly, if you're editing an image, you can just use the magic wand tool. So I turn this layer on, I'm clicking on this layer, I'm using magic wand tool up here, and Photoshop's gotten pretty smart. So if I click the E, it's pretty much getting it, and for our needs right now, that's fine. So I'm clicking the E, and if I hit Shift, I can add to it. So anything I click, that is, because this is really easy to see the difference between this white and black pixels, it's really easy to do it for Photoshop. So then let's say I wanted to just keep this Estrella part, I'm hitting copy, paste. It's become a new layer. I can go and turn off with this little eye of this layer, and now I just have Estrella. Because it's really light and we just want to do black and white, one thing you can do is on this layer, so I'm just gonna call it Estrella, I can double click it and it gives me a bunch of options, one of which is color overlay. So I'm gonna hit color overlay, and you can change what that color is when you go in here. But I have now this, basically it's just replacing the pixels, whatever color they were, with just black pixels. But it still exists, so you could toggle this effect. So it's not fully replacing them, just adding them on top, which is really useful in Photoshop. That means you're not fully altering, you can go back. If you wanted to do that with a more complicated word, so this wouldn't work. If I try and click, I have to be on the correct layer, so I have to be on this layer if I want to edit it. If I try and click that, Photoshop can't know what I want because the pixels are too similar. So I'm gonna go in the polygonal lasso tool, and really this is now a manual thing I have to do. So I'm gonna go, what I would do is just go around and delete. So I'm gonna go around and select all these pixels that I don't want and delete them. Why aren't you editable? Okay, so I need to rasterize the object first. So you see how it didn't let me delete it? If you go on the paint bucket, I don't know why that is, or you hit G, it will say, do you want to rasterize the smart object? I'll say yes. You can also just go in your panel and rasterize up here. Now I'm allowed to delete it. So I delete this, and I'll keep going, basically manually, until I've deleted everything I don't want from this T. It's a bit more manual process, but a lot of, that happens a lot. I'm sure you guys, some of you will have a better idea on how to do this. Let us know if you do. Okay, Command D or Control D it just means deselect, so that's what I'm doing. So I have this, delete it, Command D, Control D, I'm deselecting. So here's my T. It's not great. You could go, I'm going fast, so you could edit it with more detail. Last thing, and I'm now clicking this layer which has this Ben and Jerry's, and if I wanted to, I could just delete. So using my lasso tool, delete anything that's not remotely. Okay, again, I need to rasterize, so I'm going to go rasterize layer. So I'm going to just delete anything that's not this and really quick. Now, if I go in this magic wand tool, it now has up here an option to select subject. And if I hit that, it didn't work that well. Sometimes it works really well and it selects exactly what you want. This was not a good example of that, so just use the wand tool for this. But just so you know, if you want to, sometimes if you just want to select subject, this thing is really smart. So there you go. That's our basic Photoshop for right now. I hope this was clear. Sorry, it's kind of a long video.